Afternoon, Chris.
Tim.
Um, with all the injuries and suspension problems that you've got at the moment, just how big an achievement would it be if you could make it back-to-back wins against Southampton this weekend in the Premier League?
We were looking for a big week, decent performance considering against Liverpool. And I said after regarding the team that they played against us, and a great reaction on Wednesday night, and we're looking to end the week on a high. And but we need another really big performance considering, as you said, suspensions and injuries that we're suffering with at the moment.
You are massively depleted in defence. How do you deal with that situation? Could you even change the system? Are you close to dusting the old boots out yourself and a recall for Chris Wilder? I mean, just how big are the issues you've got?
Now, it hasn't come to that stage yet, and it's got to be pretty bleak if it does. So I'm sure that isn't happening. The old World Cups are not getting cleaned, but certainly yes, we will consider. It's quite funny at times because obviously we've played this formation for quite a while, but we have got it in the bag. Myself and Al to coach other systems as we have done at previous clubs, but yeah, we can be flexible with it, and ideally we wouldn't want to because of the continuity and relative success that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years with the system. But if we have to, we have to. And thought the players, when we went down to 10 men, played in a back four. 2 young centre-halves did extremely well against obviously constant pressure. So if we have to go that way, and we have to play a different way, a different formation, modern day players have got to be used to and be quick to pick up different ways of playing. We're talking about international players as well. Some of them who played different formations for their international sides, and obviously have played different formations at their previous clubs as well. So got to be flexible with it, and if we have to, then I'm sure we'll be okay.
There's been more VAR controversy this week. Scott Parker said after the game last night that it's killing the emotion of the game. Do you agree with that comment?
Yeah, in a way, I do. Even the Fulham game, from our point of view, even though Fulham were the better side, for us to have that decision against us, go against us in the final 2 minutes of the game was really disappointing. We thought that was a clear and obvious decision that should have resulted in a penalty, and obviously Scott has had his issues this season as much as we did last year and this year, and I agree with him. I think obviously a lot of the emotion's gone out of the game full stop, with no crowds being allowed into the ground. So that from a start really has affected everybody, especially for those teams that need it, especially for those promoted teams like us last season and going to the second season, and Scott as going into the first season back in the Premier League with Fulham. But just an instance on Wednesday night when David McGoldrick scored. I straight away turned to obviously the monitor that we've got in the dugout, and usually I know, as people have seen my antics at Bramall Lane when we score, I'm possibly 30 yards down the touchline when we score, especially in the situation that we are. But first and foremost, straight away you think, well, is it offside? So that's for me as a manager, and I should imagine supporters are the same watching it on TV. But the most important people that when they do score a goal, the elation of scoring, are the goal scorers and the teammates, and you can see obviously that that's straight away taken away. So whether the initial reaction or whether the decision, I think again we had another one on Wednesday night. No complaining from the Villa players, no complaining from the Villa bench. Everybody thought that the referee had made that the correct decision. It wasn't a clear and obvious mistake, and then all of a sudden it goes to an interpretation in my view. But certainly far too much is talked about VAR decisions in the game over the last 2 years.
Final one from me. We've got an international break coming up at the end of the month. Just how concerned are you about that? And do you think clubs should allow their players to travel if they have to quarantine when they return?
Well, we haven't got that issue, so I'm happy for the players to go and gain experience and represent the countries. Obviously, we've got a few boys in the Scotland squad. And we'll have another couple of boys going away, I'm sure. Not on the red list, as I've been told. So we won't have that issue. But obviously, it is quite concerning for those clubs that do have internationals that are on that list. But the international fixtures are there, the international breaks are there, and certainly we'll abide by the rules, but it really hasn't affected us, Tim. So obviously, I've not put too much thought process into it.
Thank you. All the best this weekend.
Tim. Thanks, mate.
Hi, Chris. Hope you're well. In the intervening period, did you even think for a second of trying to appeal Phil Jagielka's red card?
Yeah, we did. When we looked at it through the night and then the next morning, but we took advice on it. We had yet again a difference of opinion, but we were told that on a technicality that the three things that they're looking for or consider. And I always, as I've said before, I think I'm being consistent, Andy, regarding this overturning the decision. Really, it has to be an unbelievable, clear and obvious mistake, and I didn't think it was, but they thought it was, and so it was pointless from our point of view, having taken advice and spoken to a couple of people, and we have to accept that decision.
On team news related issues, then, in terms of comeback trails, where are Basham and Bogle right now?
Yeah, we've got both the players will be missing for tomorrow, so that's obviously a situation that we're going to have to deal with and get through.
Are there any positives regarding injury updates that players you might get back and available for selection anytime soon, whether that's for tomorrow or next time out?
Yeah, hopefully the two boys that you've mentioned that will be in contention for next weekend's game at Leicester, and definitely the last game before the international break against Chelsea in the Cup. So fingers crossed that we can get a couple back. As I said, it's been a difficult period for us, but one we have to adjust and adapt to.
So Southampton next then. What's your assessment of Ralph Hasenhüttl's side right now?
It just shows you how difficult the division is. Everybody talked about their start last season and how they recovered out of a fabulous back end, well, middle to back end of the season, and finished with real momentum and obviously started the season on the front foot and were top two. I think they went top. For a small period of time. So, obvious quality. But as you said, sometimes when you lose a little bit of momentum and you lose some key players and some results don't go for you, this is what can happen in the Premier League. But they've, talented manager and a lot of good players and, an established Premier League club, as I've said all along.
how much does that match at Southampton serve as a marker point for Sheffield United? Because whatever was done or said after that, you've had a sequence of results since that time, quite a few wins in the bag. They really responded to it as a low point in the season.
It was a disappointing afternoon for us, Andy, and you get these games through the season. There was a lot of things that weren't right that afternoon. And we paid the price for a really good, really poor performance and a pretty comfortable win from Southampton. And as I said, they were going well at the time, and obviously we weren't. So no arguments with the scoreline, and obviously the main argument was the performance, which was certainly not good enough on that afternoon.
But presumably you're a lot more relaxed and confident about the standard of recent performances, particularly in regard to, well, Villa.
Yes, really good result for us. Good attitude to the game, and as I said afterwards, when I made examples of what happened last year and comparisons to what happened last year to this year in terms of a lot of those games that we were involved in. We got the odd game last season when we weren't good enough and didn't pick up the desired result or performance, which I think everybody understands that happens, which you have to deal with and move on. But as I've talked about, 80-90% of the games were like that. But it was a fabulous goal from us, from our point of view, and a second half, a real desire to defend properly and keep the ball out of the back of net with plenty of spirit and commitment shown, which I think we've shown that right the way through the season. But maybe galvanised even us a little bit more when we felt that the decision to send Phil off, which was harsh, but we recovered from it, and obviously got a great result. And I think I talked to you about it afterwards. Premier League points for Sheffield United are so precious, and obviously 3 big ones, 3 big points for us, and I believe that we deserve for a lot of the attributes that we've shown on the night.
You spoke at the last press conference about whether your future might be here next season, and whether there was the plan, and whether the board kind of stuck to the plan, etc. When is there kind of a formal kind of ratification of all of that, rather than perhaps leaving fans wondering what's going to happen?
I spoke about it, so I should imagine that the powers will be understand what was said. But that's as much as I'm going to say about it today, Andy. I've said what I said on it, as I've always said, being honest and open regarding my feelings and thought process on the football club. So I really got nothing to add to it, Andy. And that's basically where it's at from my point of view.
All right. Thanks very much. Best of luck
Cheers,
tomorrow.
Andy. Thank you.
Hi, Chris.
Ian.
How are you?
Cold, mate. Freezing.
It's cold, isn't it? What do you make of Southampton? Because it seems that every year they lose 9-0 somewhere, and yet they're still seen as being one of the teams that are, should be in the top 10 of the division.
Yeah, with interest, obviously, an early connection in my professional apprentice career, so know a little bit about the football club, and I think one of those you always keep your eye on. But obviously they had the couple of results in the last 2 seasons that I should imagine everybody wouldn't be too chuffed about, as they say in these parts of the world. But there's only 3 points lost, so in both games. But they had a great sort of 2/3 of the season, I should imagine, is the best way of putting it, after a disappointing start. So they recovered, and they'll recover as well. You know, we watch their games. You know, they've been unfortunate in some of the games. Some of the games have been tight. They've got a lot of good young players. The manager is talking. I've heard what he's talking about in terms of improving the squad even more. And I think if you look through that squad as well, they've got a lot of Premier League experience. So, you know, when the manager's even talking about that, I think he obviously shows what he feels and he needs going into the next season to be competitive. But still, as I said, got a lot of really good players that are just going through a period that I should imagine a lot of established Premier League clubs have gone through in their time in the Premier League. I should imagine Newcastle have gone through it, West Ham, Palace, Brighton, you know, all those teams that you would put into a category of experienced, established Premier League teams sometimes have these runs. We've had them, and we've had one this season, and we're nowhere near an established Premier League team. So that's how difficult the league is. You know, they obviously took the last 2/3 of the season into the first third of the season. And they'll be looking to recover and finish strong when they've got the players to do that. And they attract good players. They've got good players. Academies produces good players. And as I said, you know, I don't think there'll be too many alarm bells there. They'll obviously want to get a result. And we'll look at the game on Saturday afternoon as one that they would want to and expect to win.
You mentioned their competitiveness and established Premier League clubs. Pep said this week or last week that the success of City was down to money, which is probably a fair comment. Does that mean that clubs like Sheffield United, it's almost impossible for them to be successful in the Premier League?
Yes. Man City, you know, I think if everybody knows the football, and you know, Manchester City has always been a really powerful football club, but they were never classed as a top 4 club. Chelsea weren't. They were never really classed as a top 3 or 4 club. I mean, I remember when Chelsea played, I think in the old second division, and the ground was all over the place. And Manchester City, I played against Man City in the old second division in 86, 87 at Main Road with the old Kipaks and the woman behind the stand ringing that bell that got on everybody's nerves. And I think we remember going there winning. So, you know, these two clubs have not been, you know, but they're the new clubs, they're the emerging clubs over the last 15 to 20 years and done absolutely amazing. And I think the manager's right. I think, and I should imagine even the most realistic, honest of Manchester City fans and Chelsea fans will say the same, because they'll have been through the journey as well. They'll have been through the journey of Nicky Weaver saving a penalty at Wembley in the old third division, and Chelsea on the rise of obviously the first owner, and then the owner that's come in have taken them to a completely different level, and that is based on an incredible amount of money going into both clubs at every level that makes them the new powerful clubs to challenge the Arsenals, the Liverpools, the Manchester Uniteds, the really established clubs that have done it on and off for the last 40, 50 years, 60 years.
So taking that forward, after a couple of years in the Premier League with the money and the riches you get in the Premier League, are Sheffield United well set if they are in a championship next year to do what Norwich have done this year and go straight back up again?
Yes, I think that's the plan, and other clubs have done that. So Burnley a good example under Sean had a year, I think, under Owen Coyle. They beat Sheffield United in the playoffs. I'm like an historian today, Ian, aren't I? Dear me. I was there when what's his name bent one in the top corner. Elliott, midfield player. They had a I don't know if it was 1 or 2 years in the Premier League, came down, Sean got the job, went up, came down and went back up. So there's there is another way to try and establish yourself in the Premier League that's a little bit different to the ones that we've talked about. But I think to be really successful, and even you look at the likes of Leicester City, who have obviously had an incredible backing from the Thai owners and other clubs, and they're still trying to break into that top four. Everton's another one, really established football club, but there is another way to do it, and other clubs have done that.
I mean, so finally, there are a lot of clubs that have been what I would say yo-yo clubs, up 1 year, down. I mean, before you finally break through and establish yourself in the Premier League. Is that what Sheffield United have got to become now? A yo-yo club, in a sense, go up, get the money, come down, and regroup, and then go back up again.
Try to survive. There's different models. Burnley have done it fantastically well, but I don't think anybody can. It's like, what do we do? From my point of view, if you wanted to win the Premier League, you can't take your model off Leicester, because it's happened once in sort of 20 years, and I think that maybe that might not happen again for a very, very long time, and maybe the Burnley model might be one that doesn't happen for a long, long time in terms of them stopping in the division. I just think that is just a group of players that have come together at the right time and have got a fabulous manager. But that can easily break up with a few players leaving and the manager leaving, and then obviously it becomes a difficult situation. But I think supporters accept it as well at times, and I think the majority of supporters at Premier League clubs, and I think the majority of supporters at our club, are realistic and will not expect us to all of a sudden, after an incredible year last year, to be knocking on the door of the top six, for the next 3, 4, and 5 years without the obvious happening. So they will accept and not like and understand and not enjoy this season. But that's part and parcel of being a football fan, and part and parcel of maybe being involved in this division at the level that we are.
Well, good luck in Southampton. Always good chatting to you.
Cheers, Moose. Cheers, pal.
See you later.
Hi, Chris.
You okay?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on some of the fringe players in your squad and their attitude and how they've had to step up. I think of Kean Bryan, for example, who was excellent the other night. And you've said all along, before you're even in the Premier League, that your most important players are those who aren't featuring every week.
Yeah, I've said it for a long time, Paul. I've said all along, the boys that got us into ninth position were maybe not the ones that played all the games. The boys that got us out of the Championship, I always say, got a right lot of time for these boys that were in the thick of our celebrations when we won promotion. Was Martin Craney, complete lunatic, as you know, but lovely kid and a brilliant boy to have about, who came in and did a job for us and played 8, 9, 10 games. Scotty Hogan, who scored against Ipswich for us on the final day. Gaz Medina, who was brilliant to work with, even though some people have thought that was what was the manager doing. It was a great signing for us. Jono from Middlesbrough came in when Enda and Jack missed games. So they're the boys. And even going back to the League One days, Paul, Big Jimmy Hansen, Jay O'Shea, a couple of players like that just added to us. Some have not sometimes worked out, which I think there's always a percentage that don't. But I still think, even though we're being hugely criticised and I think completely unfair at times in our recruitment over the last 4 years, I think we've signed some fabulous players that have come in and be part of that job. To make sure that performances are trying to be as level as you possibly can, and I'm delighted for Kean. He was a young player from Man City that obviously came through their system, so highly thought of for a long time, and maybe just fell a touch short, but had injury issues here and has had a bit of a struggle. But is now it's opened up for him, and there's an opportunity for him to go and play in the manner that he has done over the last couple of games, and really, put put a strong claim down to earn a contract and move forward with it in the last 12 games.
And speaking of signings, is David McGoldrick the best that you've ever made?
I think he's got to be up there, Paul. I quite like those types of signings from left field, and the contribution that you could always measure. The contribution on the pitch, off the pitch, he's been absolute diamond, team player, and on the pitch, still contributing and has contributed over the last 3 years. He's right up there in one of my favourites.
Has he surprised you with how well he's done? 7 goals this season. He seems to pick his opponents quite well. Most of his goals have come against the big clubs. Has he surprised you with his return?
Well, I think everybody that knows about Didsey and his career would say was an extremely talented player, an extremely talented young player, that for one reason or the other, he maybe has not incredibly fulfilled his potential, because when he was a young player, he got in at Southampton, and I think he had a couple of opportunities to make a big money move, but suffered with a couple of big injuries and timing, and sometimes a move to a club that maybe isn't right, and a poor season and an injury and a setback. So sometimes these careers aren't straightforward, but he's certainly maximising it now at a home that I know he really enjoys, around people that he really enjoys working for, and I know that a fan base that really appreciate him, and he appreciates the support he gets from them.
Have you booked a holiday yet for the end of the season? You must be ready for one. We all are.
Well, as I've said, I think I said last week, Paul, I don't think anybody's going to look back at this period off the pitch and in just normal general life as a great period for everybody, a really testing one. So of course, when that opportunity comes round, I think everybody will be looking forward to that. But there's a lot of work to be done still. Some big games involved that we need to keep going to the end of the season, and then maybe reflect on that. We'll already have our early reflections on it, and which has obviously been disappointing, and we have to take that responsibility. It hasn't been good enough, but when the opportunity will come round, most probably, yeah. But still, quickly thinking on the future.
Oh man, thank you.
Cheers, Paul.
Thanks, pal.
Cheers, mate.
Talk to you.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, mate. Just a quick one from me. It's this weekend marks 12 months since fans were last in the stadium. That win against Norwich. I'm sure you won't want to use it as an excuse, but how much of an impact has not having any fans in the ground been for you?
I believe, Chris, that with the journey that we've been on, this wasn't a negative football club, and I can rattle off half a dozen negative football clubs in the top 2 divisions straight away that players didn't enjoy playing in front of, and supporters didn't enjoy watching in a heartbeat. Our club was certainly not one of them. Our players love playing in front of the supporters at Bramall Lane, and without taking them for granted, 100%, I'm sure that our supporters enjoyed the performances that the players had served up. And I believe that those supporters played a huge part in turning losses into draws and draws into wins. And I'm sure that they would have turned losses into draws and draws into wins this year without an absolute shadow of a doubt. And I think anybody in the game that's got any knowledge of the game would completely agree with me and Sheffield United. I think it was even mentioned. I think Joe Cole even mentioned it on commentary on Wednesday night. What it would have been like in the last 10 minutes of the game when us hanging on down to 10 men, 1-0 up against Villa. What a push that they would have given us to get over the line. Thankfully that we did it without them, but it would have certainly made it a lot easier with them inside the ground.